Hello, welcome to another blocking video. I'm kind of laughing a bit because this is my third attempt at filming this today. I've got a couple of problems. One, the shawl is too big for the number of blocking mats I have. By the way, my name is Anniken and I teach knitting workshops and design knitting patterns. Today I'm going to block a big circular shawl. The problem I've got is that I have to block it on my table because I don't have a floor space I can block it on at the moment. And it's too big for the number of blocking mats I have. So I ordered some more blocking mats, and even though it's the same company, they are slightly bigger, so they don't fit. So I decided I would block it folding it over. So basically I'm blocking like a half circle. But trying to match up the edging all the way around proved to be a little bit difficult. So I basically failed the first time. So what I've done now is that I've taken these padlock markers. I'll give you a close-up of those later. So I can basically, using them as markers, I've attached them to the edging. I've got 64 repeats of the edging, and each repeat is kind of like a peak. So in each one of those points, I put a marker every 8 points. And I've even tried to color coordinate them because I have quite a few of these. They're just like padlock markers, and I just put my elbow on one of these knit blockers. They're quite sharp. Let me just make sure I'm not bleeding. No, I'm okay, I think. Right, I got these knit blockers lying here because I just used them the first time I tried to do this, and I just stuck my elbow on one of them. They're very, very sharp. So what I've done is I've taken 2 blocking wires, one for each half, and basically put them under this, in the middle of these 2 layers of fabric, and then I've taken them to the center to where I cast on and basically pulled them through. So I got 1 blocking wire going from the center that way and 1 going the other way. Okay, so now let's see if we can actually do this. So I'm going to pull this out. That's the center, that's where I cast on. So I'm going to use these knit blockers and put that down there to kind of anchor that in place. And then I'm going to match up that blue marker I got here with the blue marker I got there. Pull that out, and I'm going to measure to see how far that is from the center. That's about 31 inches. Then I'm going to 31 inches. What I'm going to do is I'm measuring that along the top, because from each of the points to the center it's going to be roughly the same distance. I'm not too bothered if it's not exactly the same distance, but I want it to be roughly the same distance. So I'm going to take this point that I've marked here, and I'm basically, the marker in that point, I'm actually lining that up with the pin I've got here, and that's roughly 31 inches, I think. I will double check that in a minute. And then along this top edge, I'm just going to use these knit blockers to pin this in place. There we go. And then here I've got white markers, so I'm going to match those 2 up. And then I also want those to be, let's say 31 inches. Yes. So I also want those to be 31 inches from the center, which is there, roughly. So I'm just going to put a marker in there. Not a marker, a pin in there. Then I'm going to match up these 2 points and stretch those out. This is much easier, by the way, if you put because I got 64 repeats of the edging, I put a removable stitch marker, like a padlock stitch marker, every 8 points on the edging. That's making this a lot easier. Okay, so let's just, okay, so from here it's to the end of that blocking mat. So in order to stretch that out, be able to put the pins in, I really need to have it on the table. So I've just slid the blocking mat off the table a little bit onto some chairs. Right, then I'm going to stretch that to about here. Grab a pin and then I'm going to put some nip blockers in along the top here. And then I've got green markers in here, so I was able to kind of colour coordinate them, which you don't have to do if you don't have different colour pins, but it does make it a little bit easier. So that's where I want the green ones to go. So here are my two green ones with the green markers. Match those up. So if you're into sewing, this is just like when you match up your little, what they call the sewing patterns, you got little marks on the pattern that you match up, don't you? This is basically the same kind of system. So now I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 points. So now I'm going to start pinning out the ones in between. So let's start down here. So I'm going to do every other one. So I just want to match up that one and that one. I've got these big double yarn overs. So I'm basically just matching the yarn overs and putting a pin, in the two. Right, let me just move the camera down a little bit so you can see what I'm doing. So I'm going to go around here. I'm not going to do every one yet because I may have pulled it a little bit tight. So I'm going to do every other one. Difficult thing when you block things folded over with an edging like that is to make sure you're matching the top and the bottom of the fabric. Because the first time I tried to do this, I got it completely wrong. Okay, let's just... So if you're watching this after you've actually knitted this shawl, on the edging there is a row, I think it's row 7, where you've got 2 double yarn overs on the same row. That's the row that I'm pulling out into a point. So if you haven't knitted this shawl yet, then that won't make any sense, but if you've actually knitted this shawl then, and you're looking at this for guidance on how to block it, then that's what you want to look for. 1, 2. One thing I did forget to say was that before I blocked this, I soaked it in lukewarm water, squeezed the excess, and a bit of wool wash, squeezed the excess water out in a towel, and then started blocking it. So, and this one is a little bit kind of wonky. We'll straighten that up a little bit, and that one as well is a little bit. There we go. That's better. So I'm going to start up here since I'm here. So I'm going to slide this back a bit. It's easier when you're putting pins in it. The bit that you're putting pins into is actually on the table. So I'm actually doing every single one now, rather than every other one, because it feels like I pulled it out about the right amount. I like to pin my shawls out, stretch my shawls enough so that they feel really tight, the fabric feels really taut, and it feels like I've done this roughly the right amount. Sometimes I will go around and pin it, and then I will go around and stretch it a little bit more. That's a little bit of a pain to do when you've got one pin in each point. If these were just straight edges, like here, just with points, I would just go through with a blocking wire, go through each point, and it would make it a lot easier, really. But it's a bit difficult with a circular shawl. Now you can get blocking wires that are flexible enough to go around in a circle. Unfortunately, I don't really like them. I think I've got 2 different makes, and I really don't like them. So I prefer to, even though this is probably a little bit more time consuming, especially if I have to adjust them, I much prefer using just pins. The other problem with doing it this way is that when you use blocking wires, you can kind of make sure you pull the points out an equal amount. Doing it this way is a little bit more difficult, so some points are stretched a little bit more than others. I don't think it really makes a huge difference. I don't think you'll notice that when the shawl's finished. So I'm just going around now and doing every single point. So you can see it's getting a bit tighter. It's actually starting to lift a bit on that side, which means I've done it a little bit too tight. I'm just going to see if I can relax a couple of these. Actually, what I'm going to do is I'm going to carry on, then at the end I might go and just release it a little bit along the top there, because that's easier than going in around and releasing each one of these points slightly. If you stretch it too much, it basically starts to lift on the other end. So I don't know if you can see, but the blocking mass at the top edge there are kind of lifting up a little bit, like that. And you don't really want that. But rather than going back around and releasing these, I'm going to release the top ones instead, because I think that'll be quicker. So now on this side I've already done every other point, so now I'm just going in and filling in the blanks, if you like. So I'm just doing the in between points that I didn't do the first time. So yeah, I've definitely stretched these points too much. It's pulling up at the top here. So I need to release the pressure a little, because this is lifted up quite badly now. So I'm just going to measure to see how far that is. That's 30. So I've actually pulled it a bit too much out to the sides here. So I'm going to release that in a little bit. Okay, so I've just released the top edging a little bit. So instead of having it right up against here, I've just kind of let it back a little bit. So I'm going to just go and double check the measurements to make sure it's roughly the same distance from the center to the edging all the way around. And then I'm going to leave this to dry overnight, and hopefully in the morning it'll be dry. So what I recommend, if you're going to do this and you don't have the space to lay it all out flat, what I recommend you do is to match up points of the edging. If you can color code it, if you don't have the padlock stitch markers, then you can just use different lengths of yarn. So I did one every 8 repeats, so 8 points every 8th point on the edging. And by color coding it, it meant I could just match the colors, and that made it a lot easier to do this. So I hope that was useful. I'm just going to double check the measurements and things on this and do a little bit of fine tuning, and then leave it to dry.